It's a TV miniseries called Lasermannen, or I don't know what it's called in English, the Laserman.
Ah,
It's um, it's very closely based on the true story of a serial killer in Sweden during the early 90s. Who was his nickname was the Laserman, Lasermannen, because he shot people with like a laser pointer, like a like a on a rifle with like a laser
right.
sight.
God.
And he was a serial killer and bank robber, and called Jonas Sonius, who was very anti immigrants, racist. So he killed immigrants during the
God.
90s, and while there was a rise of the far right movement in Sweden was on the rise, and he was the extreme of that, where he was, actually going out and killing people. And this TV series follows him very closely, and played by David Dencik, who is really good in this part. You would probably know him from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or No Time to Die. He's a
I love that
Swedish,
actor.
and I think
He's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. Yeah, he plays Jonas Sonius, and he's really good in this part. This is the best part I've seen him in, actually, and he is. Um, yeah, you just follow his life, and he's just kind of a lonely guy. You see his upbringing and jumping around in time quite a bit, and how he just starts like robbing banks and killing people, and he's a real sociopath, and he's very special. He tries to. You also see him trying to hook up with girls and stuff like that, and it's all taken from testimonies and interviews with him and with people who were connected to him, telling stories about how how weird he was, and how strange, unsettling guy he was, and interviews with himself as well, that he tells the whole story without, he just tells it as he saw it.
I just googled
And they've taken that.
to double check it was the actor I was thinking of, and in doing so, I saw the real Laserman. He actually looks quite a lot like him. You know?
Yeah, Swedish TV series are very hit and miss, I feel, and this was a show that I'd missed. The show came out in 2005,
Ah,
and it's really like grainy, and it's very realistic. You follow the cops as well as they're trying to search for him, and it also like a little bit like that show. What was it called? Mindhunter, was talking about how profiling began in the U.S. This actually depicts on how profiling came to Sweden, and like the police officer who started profiling killers in Sweden, to inspired by the U.S. profiling.
right.
I think he started doing that in Sweden to try and find Lasermannen, trying to find out who would do this, and I think they caught him because of profiling also, because they managed to figure out what kind of person he was, and narrowed it down in that way, eventually capturing him. And it shows the police work in a very realistic, almost documentarian way, and it feels very like they're drinking coffee and having meetings, but it's not boring. It's just feels like you're getting immersed in this historical event that was very important for Swedish modern history.
Great, yeah. We, ignorant in Scotland, sometimes struggle to differentiate between you different Scandinavian countries, and we just think that you guys do great drama, like that. You do really good police procedural drama, like in the books of Jo Nesbø, but like to bring it back to the Swedes, I always love The Bridge. I mean, I'm completely sold on this. I'm definitely going to watch it. I really like that actor. I thought he was one of the best parts of like Tinker Tailor, and he's been good in other things as well.
Nice. Yeah, and I would say I like The Bridge as well, but this is very different from The Bridge. This is much more realistic and like biographical
Cool.
depiction of something that happened, and not so much like plot and the like twists and turns of it. It's not about that. It's more about like putting in the police work and him following this character who's very special, and as he's doing these horrific murders and
Right.
like a surprising amount of just attempts at murder. He was very bad at actually killing anyone, which is interesting. I was surprised by how many actually survived his shootings. Like,
there's a bit of a question mark in dramas in the UK right now, and I've certainly watched a few where it is like this, but it's still been very entertaining. And like, I don't, but there's a bit of a question mark around making these dramas that follow the killer, that we're giving them too much time, and that, like, even though of course we're damning of what they say, like, there's something of a glorification or an obsession with serial killers. Do you feel like that doesn't do that because it's so realistic, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much about that because I felt like it also, spent time on trying to explain the terror that especially immigrants in Sweden were experienced during the time. But yeah, maybe someone would disagree with that, but I felt like they weren't showing him in any sort of romantic light. He was, he comes off as a mentally ill and sociopath who is very lonely and quite pathetic, So I didn't feel like they were, making him out to be some kind of interesting person. He seems like a complete loser who didn't have anything better to do with his life than to hate and kill people.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe people would disagree, but I don't know if I have that look at it in any way. I feel like stories are interesting to tell, even if they follow reprehensible people, and that can have its value as well as showing the victims and the other side of it.
Totally. I just know, like, especially it was a part of the kind of zeitgeist conversation when, and I actually, like, I'm not going to say much on it because I haven't watched the show, so it would be stupid of me to say it, but I suppose I have, like, formed a, like, mini opinion in my head based on, like, secondhand readings, so I shouldn't have. But, like, when Dahmer came out, you remember that, the Netflix show Dahmer?
Yeah.
Or Dahmer. There was a bit of a, why are people becoming so obsessed with this? Like, as in, like, yeah, and then it was almost in response, and not literally, but a show called the Long Black Shadow came out, I think, in the UK, which was about these serial killings, but it was all about the victims, But then, I mean, we, from a storytelling point of view, it's actually, if it's like different victims, it's actually harder to tell a compelling through-line narrative about even just what happened by doing that, like,
yeah, following the police maybe. But yeah,
exactly. I would still like to see this show and then see what I think about it. But yeah, it's an interesting question that's coming up at the moment.
Totally. No, yeah. It will be hard to find that streaming anywhere. I don't know where you would find it streaming, but I hope that someone can figure it out.
Hey, I'm Josh the Scot.
And I'm Mårten the Swede, and this is an excerpt from our film review podcast called The Scot
and the Swede, where every episode we review a new film and an old film, somewhat related, and then do another shorter recommend of a Scottish film
and a Swedish film. So yeah, if you want to listen to the whole episodes, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and any podcast streamer of your choice.